God. Yeah, oh God, I just look out your window and you see a tree and like some fucking 15 or 14-year-old kid out there just get out of my tree.
You didn't have to make sound effects to it, Kat.
I did, because people listening, they can't see the stupid face I was making, so I had to let them know that the sound matched my face.
I mean, I think we described it enough to where they got the picture. But thank you.
Welcome back to Hot Mess Murder Club, where we talk about true crime the way it actually deserves to be talked about, with facts, fury, and absolutely zero chill. I am Kat, and here with me, already annoyed and ready to start swinging at rich people with golf clubs, metaphorically of course, maybe, is my feral best friend and co-host Holly. And I have to ask, Holly, how are you?
I would just like to state for the record that I hate this case already. Let's do it.
Yeah, I've heard you say that before, and this one is definitely warranted. Let me guess, you hate it because it involves generational wealth, sloppy police work, and a group of teenage boys who think alibis are optional?
That, and because every time someone says gated community, I know that something horrific is about to happen. All those little privileged assholes always do something that they probably shouldn't be doing because they know they have the money to cover it up.
Yeah, they're the kids that are like, my daddy's a lawyer.
Right.
My dad's a lawyer. The hard R on the lawyer.
My dad is the inventor of toaster strudel.
Ew. Your dad's a pervert.
First of all, my father has passed, so now you're an asshole.
My dad died like 13 years ago. I get it. Now what? Now fucking what?
I didn't call your dad a pervert.
I was talking about the person who invented toaster strudels as a pervert. Everybody makes sexual jokes about toaster strudels. Are you okay?
I was just talking about a nutritious, healthy breakfast.
That's not either one of those things. That's none of those. Anyways, well, before we get into it, I just want to say a good, solid hello to our Hot Mess family, and thank you for being here with us. We have noticed a bit of an increase of listeners, so I wanted to take a minute, and just welcome all of you, especially if you're new. If you've been here since episode 1, you are a real grand champion, but just wanted to say a quick thank you, and I hope you guys enjoy this first time 2-part episode that Holly and I are actually pretty excited to get into. It's twisty, it's turny, there's a lot of dumb fuckery, and I'm ready. I love it already.
I'm ready.
All right. So let's talk about the night a 15-year-old girl was murdered 70 feet from her own front door in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in America. Holly, you're not going to need your passport today, so you can put that one back in the safe, but we are going to go on a plane ride. Are you ready?
Why does it have to be a plane ride if I don't need my passport? Why don't we just drive there?
This is a long time to be in a car with you and all the stops and the snacks and the whining and...
I like snacks, ma'am. And I know you do too. I know you do too. Don't judge me.
No, I've moved on. I want to be difficult tonight.
Okay. Well, let's get on the plane then. No snacks.
All right.
No, not even peanuts for you. You get nothing.
What? No, I can still get peanuts.
No,
I at least get
that's a snack. You don't deserve a peanut. Continue, please.
Oh, fucking hell. All right, Mom. Jesus Christ.
That's what happens when you don't give me snacks. I get hangry.
You can have all the fucking snacks you want.
Thank you. I'm better.
All right. Anyway, so we are headed to Greenwich, Connecticut, 1975. Belle Haven, to be exact. And this is a beautiful gated community. It's generational money, the kind of place where people don't lock their doors and definitely don't expect a fucking murder. October 30th is Mischief Night. Teenagers are out roaming, flirting, egging houses, wasting toilet paper on tree branches, and doing what teenagers do when adults turn around for 2 seconds. This is when Martha Moxley leaves her house to meet friends. She walks next door to the Skakel estate, and she never comes home.
I feel the need to speak up and say Mischief Night is bullshit, and I will forever call it Devil's Night. It's the night before Halloween. Anybody that has ever seen the movie The Crow will agree with that. I don't care what they say in Connecticut. I don't care that they call it Mischief Night. I guess they're G-rated. It's the Devil's Night. Light shit on fire. Let's go.
I'm here for it. I'm okay with it.
Thank you.
And I like I said, we can call it Devil's Night, but I'm just going story-wise, they call it Mischief Night. It's not as fun and it's kind of dumb and juvenile, but we all know the truth. It's Devil's Night, but for them, it's Mischief Night. Okay? They're a little sheltered. Leave them alone. They're not out there with Ouija boards conjuring spirits, all right? They're throwing toilet paper at trees.
Fucking amateurs.
Right, amateur hour up in Connecticut. Anyway, so before we get buried in suspects, theories, and 50 years of legal bullshit, this case is not about the Skakels, and it's not about the Kennedys. It's about Martha Elizabeth Moxley, and she was 15 years old. She had been in Greenwich for barely a year when she was killed. Before that, she grew up in California, born in San Francisco in August of 1960. Raised in Oakland and Piedmont, this move to Connecticut in the summer of 1974 wasn't her idea. It was her parents' job move. New coast, new school, new social rules. And she handled it better than most adults ever could.
Martha didn't just land in Greenwich and survive. She thrived. She made friends fast. She was an honors student at Greenwich High School, already known for her personality and social ease. Back in junior high, she had been voted most popular and best personality, which tracks when literally everyone who knew her described her as upbeat, warm, and easy to be around. She lived with her parents, Dorothy and David Moxley, and with her older brother, John. Her dad was a managing partner at Touche Ross, which meant the family had stability, but they were not Belle Haven royalty. They were newcomers, but they fit in well.
And Martha was athletic and creative in equal measure. She took ballet and piano lessons. She played basketball, she swam, she played tennis at the Belle Haven Club. She loved animals, especially her cat Tiger, who shows up repeatedly in family stories and memories. She was also an artist, constantly sketching, carrying an artist notebook, drawing people, moments, little observations from her life. And she wrote all the time. Martha was a dedicated diarist. Not in a Dear Diary, I sense doom approaching kind of way, in a painfully normal teenage way. Crushes, friends, embarrassing moments, tiny joys, the kind of writing that's intimate because it's never meant to be evidence someday.
Martha lived in a house with clear rules and expectations. Curfews were enforced, check-ins were standard, and Martha's curfew was 9:30 p.m. It was treated as a hard cutoff. Dorothy was the more social, outward parent. She was the one who initially grounded Martha for missing a previous curfew and one who eventually let her go out on Mischief Night because Martha was an honor student who rarely got into trouble. David Moxley was quieter and more private. At home, he was steady and reserved. According to family accounts, Martha took after him. Observant, thoughtful, someone who noticed things and wrote them down.
Yeah, and so much so that David encouraged her involvement in the school newspaper and yearbook and paid closer attention to her academic life than the social hierarchy around Belle Haven. And most importantly to this case, he was incredibly firm about her 9:30 p.m. curfew. So I guess so far we kind of gather that she wrote a lot of things in her diary that sound like they're going to be included as evidence, and this 9:30 p.m. curfew is going to be a huge factor, I think, in this investigation so far.
Well, since Martha was only 15, she didn't have a declared career plan. She wasn't really supposed to at this time in her life. She loved writing, drawing, and generally observing people. Her family later said that if she had lived, she would have ended up in journalism, the arts, communication, or a people-facing career where her personality actually had a place to thrive.
So basically, she wasn't famous or troubled. She wasn't even reckless. She was just a kid who liked her friends, creativity, animals, and writing her thoughts down at the end of the day. And honestly, knowing all of this makes what happened to her even more unforgivable. So Martha actually lived between two worlds. On one side, her public school friends from Greenwich High. On the other, the Belle Haven neighborhood kids, where wealth and last names quietly dictated social gravity. She moved fluidly between both, though. She was friends with Michael and Thomas Skakel, who lived across the street. Her diary mentions normal, awkward teenage interaction. Tommy putting his hand on her knee during a car ride, Michael buying her ice cream. Nothing sinister, nothing predictive, just teenagers circling each other in that messy, undefined way. And to be completely transparent here, our sweet little Martha wasn't quite a prude either. She was dating. She had flirtations, she had crushes, and she had at least one steady boyfriend. She was a curious teenager exploring something that comes naturally, and there's no shame in that. Right, Holly?
I mean, there's no shame in that. I think there's a little bit of shame in taking on both brothers. I think that's a little bit.
Well, you say taking on both brothers, like there's a video out somewhere.
I mean, they didn't have the kind of camera footage that we have today. So who's to say? You never know. I do feel like with her having flirtations with both brothers and hanging out with them all the time, she's kind of setting herself up here. I'm not calling the victim. I'm not saying she deserved it by any means, because that's inappropriate and that's definitely unwarranted for what happened to her. But I do feel like it's messy is a good way to say it. It's messy. She got herself into something she couldn't get herself out of. And her playing the field between the two boys is her own problem. And she did kind of set herself up for that. You can look at me like that all you want. I said
it just sounds a lot like you're blaming the victim here. I'm waiting for you to dig yourself out of that hole, and it's just not. Your shovel's getting bigger.
I'm not going to try to dig myself out. I said what I said. It is inappropriate for anybody, any person, anywhere to try to go after brothers. And whether she's going after them or just innocently flirting with either or both, pick one. That's really what it comes down to. Just pick one. Don't be a bitch. Don't be a slut. Just pick one. I called her a slut. Sorry, Martha. Anyway.
My God.
That being said, we want to get this out of the way early so there's just no misunderstanding. Her autopsy had confirmed she was a virgin at the time of her death. So that particular fact is disgustingly dragged out over and over again in this case, like it's some... I can't. You're making me laugh.
Well, because everything you just said and then going into this line is the exact opposite.
I never said she banged him.
You said she was a slut and she deserved it. That's basically what you said.
I didn't mean like she didn't. I don't know how to undo what I said because it shouldn't be undone. She shouldn't have been messing around with two boys at once, especially not brothers. And again, I never said that she had hooked up with either of them. Her messing around with them is one thing. I never said she had sex with them, and evidence obviously states that she was a virgin at the time of her death. So it is just important that I notate that to our listeners, that there was no evidence of a sexual motive. This was not about sex. This was about violence. And I apologize for calling her a slut, even though she, in today's day and age, might have been.
Put the shovel down, Holly. Put the fucking shovel down already. Drop the shovel. Anyway, so by the fall of 1975, Martha was spending a lot of time at the Skakel house. Too much time if you read some of what she wrote in that diary before the murder happened. Holly, why don't you let us know what she wrote in that diary since you're all about this?
I mean, in the weeks before her death, Martha's diary documents a steady shift in how she felt about Michael and Thomas Skakel. Again, both brothers. In September, she wrote about riding with them in the Lincoln Continental that Michael called his love mobile. And Tommy, who was 17, was practically sitting on her lap, putting his hand on her knee while she steered. Michael didn't hide how he felt about that.
And on September 19th, Martha wrote that Michael was so totally out of it and acting like a real ass. He accused her of leading Tommy on, even though she described Tommy as a friend. The tension escalated to the point of a near fist fight between the brothers. Martha wrote one line and never expanded on it. I really have to stop going over there. And I hate how ominous that is. I absolutely hate that because that's one of the lines in her diary. I really have to stop going over there. And then she didn't. And then this fucking whole case happens.
I feel like in her mind, she knew what she was doing. She knew how this was going to end. Maybe not to the extent of which it ended, but she knew that it was getting complicated and that she was putting herself at risk and putting the brothers and their relationship with each other at risk. So maybe it would have been better if she had just stepped back like she had originally said she needed to.
Yeah, you're
But
right. I
the
mean, I guess
raging,
maybe that's when she realized I really have to stop going over there because of how awkward it was getting and because of the escalating situation between the two brothers and her. And then I guess she just never really stopped going over there. I mean, apparently she didn't because we're here.
raging hormones will do that to you.
That is true. I've done some really dumb shit because of raging hormones back in my day, and you have too.
Oh, God. We're not talking about us. We're talking about Martha. Let's continue.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. We can do that episode about us never.
Never. That's a good plan.
Yeah. So the night of October 30th, 1975, that 9:30 curfew her father was so strict about was already in play before Martha even left the house. She had been grounded earlier for missing a curfew the weekend before, but that restriction was lifted that evening and there was no school the next day. Mischief Night was happening all over the neighborhood and her parents gave her permission to participate.
It's important to understand what the night meant for teenagers and parents in this town to be able to clarify why this murder was such a clusterfuck after the fact. You see, Mischief Night is an informal tradition observed in parts of the Northeast, including Connecticut. It takes place on October 30th, the night before Halloween, aka Devil's Night. On Mischief Night, teenagers are expected to be outside, running through the neighborhoods, ringing doorbells, toilet papering houses, throwing eggs, writing on windows with soap, kind of a more angsty version of trick-or-treating, if you can call that angst, I guess.
I mean, I guess I would call that angsty. I mean, they're getting their frustration out, but doing it in an incredibly innocent way. I mean, that's angsty.
I mean, I'd be proud if my kid went TPing, to be honest. Like, there's so many worse things they could be doing. I don't feel like it's really angsty. It's kids being kids because I think everybody goes through that at one point.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Well, because of that, the noises and shouting after dark, it doesn't really draw attention to the neighbors. Kids being in yards on the streets or cutting across properties isn't unusual. So, in a nutshell, Mischief Night meant dozens of teenagers and they were outside at the same time, moving freely with very little adult supervision. And at 6:30 p.m., Martha Moxley was ungrounded and left her house. And she promised she'd be home by 9:30 p.m., that curfew her dad was so serious about. And for the next few hours, Martha and her friends took Mischief Night seriously. They went around ringing doorbells, laughing, running, and enjoying being able to be bad without the consequences or side eyes from adults. Then, around 8:45 or 9 p.m., the group gathered at the Skakel house. Martha sat in a car in the driveway with Michael and Tommy. She was in the front seat with the boys listening to music, and her two friends were in the back. At approximately 9:15 p.m., two of the older Skakel kids, because there was fucking 7 of them, by the way, and their cousin said they needed the car to take their cousin home to watch the premiere. Michael decided he wanted to go too, and then he left with his older brothers and their cousin to watch Monty Python's Flying Circus, which honestly, great taste in entertainment, I must say. But so that leaves Martha behind with Tommy and her friends Helen and Jeffrey.
At 9:30, the group was hanging out at the end of the Skakel's front yard, and when Martha and Tommy began heavily flirting and getting a bit handsy, Helen and Jeffrey left to go to their separate homes. They just weren't having it. They later told investigators that the last thing they saw was Martha and Tommy flirting, and then Tommy fell on top of Martha. They got a little embarrassed and decided to leave. Yeah, bye. This is the last confirmed sighting of Martha being alive.
And Tommy Skakel originally claimed that he and Martha said goodnight around 9:30 and that he watched her walk toward her home before going back inside to work on a school report about Abraham Lincoln and Lincoln log cabins. Yeah. Okay. I don't believe that for a fucking second. But anyway, so nobody physically saw her walk all the way to her house. But unfortunately, Martha would never make her curfew because she was intercepted on her own property before she ever made it inside. Investigators concluded that she was attacked in her own driveway shortly before 10 p.m. Judging by the medical examiner's evaluation of her liver temperature, they could figure that 10 p.m. was the approximate time of death.
9:30 had already come and gone without the usual sound of the front door opening. At first, Martha's mom, Dorothy, had told herself it was Mischief Night. Kids get distracted. They lose track of time. Maybe Martha had stayed out a little longer than she should have. Still, she sent Martha's brother John out to look around 10 p.m. He walked the block, cut through the yards, checked the usual spots the teenagers drift towards. He came back without her, and he eventually just went to bed. Dorothy tried to settle down after the 11 o'clock news. She sat in the window seat of their living room, not really sleeping, just waiting for the sound of footsteps or a knock at the door. At 2 in the morning, she woke up. The house was quiet, and she immediately went upstairs to check Martha's room. Her bed was untouched, and that horrifying feeling that every parent dreads slammed into her stomach like a sledgehammer. That's the moment when the waiting for her to come home stopped. Dorothy started calling friends, neighbors, and anyone who had seen or could have seen Martha last. Everyone came back with different versions of the same answer, which was, "We thought she left. We assumed she went home. She was with Tommy. She was at the Skakels." As desperation kicked in, she took matters into her own hands.
God, how terrifying would that be? Poor Dorothy.
Yeah, I think that's really every parent's nightmare. Like, your kid doesn't come home and nobody knows where they are.
Yeah, and they all
Yep.
start saying the same thing, and so you reach out to those people, and this is what happens. Oh, God.
Yeah.
So she needed to talk to the Skakel family. So the first time Dorothy reached across the street was in the middle of the night. The initial call was at approximately 2 a.m. Dorothy spoke to Julie Skakel, which is Tommy and Michael's 18-year-old sister, who informed her that Martha was not there. The second call, as her concern grew, she tried to call to speak directly with Tommy, as friends had reported last seeing Martha with him. Tommy was brought to the phone, sounding not very sleepy, and stated that he had no idea where Martha was, claiming she left around 9:30. During one of those calls, Julie suggested that Dorothy call their cousin, Jimmy, to see if Martha was there. So she fucking did. When she called, Dorothy explained that she was looking for Martha, and Mrs. Terrian took her number and promised to check the house. Now, Terrian is the Skakel's cousins. But when she called Dorothy back shortly after, she informed her that neither Martha nor Jimmy were at the house. So that's interesting because Jimmy said he was going there with his older brothers.
Yeah, well, we know that kids don't lie. I mean,
Absolutely not.
no, they don't do that. Not on Mischief Night.
Absolutely not.
Not in a gated community. Not
No.
where everybody can back each other up with money. That's fine.
Yeah. My
It
dad's a
doesn't-
lawyer.
That's right.
So finally, at 3:45 a.m., Dorothy felt that she had no choice and she called the police.
Officially, Martha was reported missing at 3:48 a.m., and this is where all the professionals entered the story. Before sunrise, one patrol officer had shown up. Just one. He had a quick walkthrough with a flashlight, like he was checking for raccoons rather than a missing teenager. And because it was the morning of Halloween, the officer ignored several suspicious sights, assuming they were pranks from the night before. Mind you, this was the same backyard where Martha's body was lying under the low branches of a ponderosa pine. The officer didn't see her because she was tucked really deep under the branches. That's the level of diligence that you're working with. The diligence where this officer was not taking the scene seriously due to a made-up holiday. They didn't even take it seriously enough to send more than one officer to search, or they didn't call for assistance when she was unable to be located with the one officer on site, or even look under trees with actual effort. Some would say this case was doomed right from the rip. So by 6 in the morning, the sun was up and Dorothy crossed the street to the Skakel house to ask in person this time. 15-year-old Michael Skakel answered. Dorothy would later describe him as disheveled, shaky, very hungover. He was still wearing the same clothes from the night before. Well, go figure, it was 6 o'clock in the morning. She asked if Martha was there, and he said no. He told her he left around 9 p.m. to go to his cousin Jimmy Terrian's house and hadn't seen Martha since before he had left. The answer came packaged with a timeline, start time, and destination. Dorothy asked to check the Winnebago parked in the driveway, the motorhome where the teenagers sometimes had gathered. Michael agreed and walked her over and opened the door. She took a long look inside, and it was empty. Dorothy went back across the street towards her home.
And meanwhile, John and a friend of his had been outside for a couple of hours, this time searching more deliberately. They moved through the yard slowly, not just glancing, but actually checking. They walked toward a brush pile near the house, thick and tangled, and pushed the branches aside with their hands. And later, investigators would say that that was an odd place to search, but at the moment, nothing felt odd, and they still didn't find her. Then Dorothy went back to the Skakel house, again, later that morning, but closer to 8 or 9 this time. This time she wanted to speak with Rushton or Rush Skakel Sr., the boy's father, and she was no longer making polite inquiries, she was searching for answers. Rushton reportedly told her not to worry and suggested that Martha was probably out playing a Halloween prank, so Dorothy went home without her daughter. And by late morning, friends were actively walking the neighborhood. Around 12:20 p.m., 15-year-old Sheila McGuire was walking through the Moxley yard to meet another friend, Holly, but not you, Holly, another 1970s Holly, when she thought that she saw a mannequin, and we know it's never a mannequin. She believed it was left over from the night before, Mischief Night shenanigans following them into the next day. And when Sheila stepped closer beneath the pine branches, the shape on the ground stopped looking like a mannequin. It wasn't until she was just a few feet away that she recognized the blue and white checked pants Martha had been wearing the night before. Then she saw the jagged metal golf club shaft protruding from Martha's neck and realized with horror that that's not a mannequin at all. That's her friend. Martha Elizabeth Moxley was lying face down under the low, heavy limbs of a ponderosa pine at the back of the property. The branches hung close to the ground, thick enough to hide her from a casual glance. You had to look really far under them to see her. Up close, there was no mistaking what had happened. Her head had taken the brunt of it. She had been struck at least 15 times with a golf club. The force was extreme. Her skull was fractured in multiple places. The blows weren't scattered or hesitant. They were concentrated, repeated, and focused on her head until the club itself gave out. Her blonde hair no longer looked blonde. It was dark and hardened, matted with dry blood and brain matter. It had crusted into a thick mass that didn't resemble hair anymore. Oh my God. And from a distance, in October sunlight, it was easy to see how someone could mistake her for a Halloween prop, which is actually a really disgusting sentence to say out loud, but I had to do it. After the club shattered from the impacts, the attack didn't stop then. The broken metal shaft was used again, and it was driven through her neck, entering one side and exiting the other. The rod passed completely through. On her arms and hands, there were bruises, defensive injuries. She had raised them instinctively to protect her head during the first blows in the driveway. There had been a moment when she was conscious enough to still try and save her own life. Her blue and white checked pants and underwear had been pulled down to her knees. Her shirt and sweater were still on, though, and they were soaked through with blood. There was no sperm, no internal trauma consistent with rape. Whatever had been intended sexually, it was not completed. Or it was never about completion at all, but just the humiliation. There were abrasions along her skin, the kind that came from being dragged across rough pavement and grass. Investigators later described them as road rash-style injuries. She had been attacked in the driveway and then pulled across the lawn. My God.
That's insane.
That's a lot of rage.
That's a lot of rage. Yeah, it's like they went straight to the purge. Mischief Night is not Mischief Night. This was the purge.
Yeah, do you know how much force it takes to break a golf club like that?
On a person?
Yeah.
That's even worse. Yeah, I can imagine hitting concrete with it so many times, and it would still take a lot of effort to do that onto a hard surface, but imagine doing that into a body. That's crazy.
You know what though? I watched a little YouTube documentary. Hi, maybe I was hit with a golf club. But and the lady, the investigator lady had a golf club, and she was trying to see how much force it would take to break it because of all the investigation that we're going to get into in part 2. But she was slamming it like on the ground and it wasn't breaking, but she actually ended up bending it, like holding the head of it on the ground and using her foot to hold it in the middle and bent it. And it broke pretty easily that way. So I don't know, maybe it was broken because like it was bent intentionally.
I mean, there's no way to know.
There isn't.
She was not placed gently beneath the pine. She was hauled there from near the driveway, where there was a huge pool of blood and a portion of a shaft of a golf club. Let me start by asking, with mom running back and forth across the street and brother looking for her and friends looking for her, how come nobody had spotted this pool of blood on the driveway right in the front yard prior to finding her body in the back? Like, how is that never discovered? That doesn't make any sense.
I think they were searching the backyard for some reason. I think maybe, yeah, I don't know, but if the blood pool's in the driveway and they never went out the front, I don't know. But from what I understand, everybody was looking in the backyard.
Well, I understand that, but mom went across the street, meaning she went out the front, wouldn't she? I would assume across the street is out across the front is where I think of across the street.
Yeah, but I mean, it also, if it was like midnight, it still would have been really dark out. Maybe she just didn't see it until the sun came up.
Well, when the sun came up and she went over there at 6 a.m., again, how did she not see that? Or how did the police not see that when they were looking around for raccoons?
I don't know. Maybe we'll fucking find out in part 2, Holly. I have no idea. I wasn't
just saying
there.
That's a big oversight for everybody. That's
we were negative 10 years old, remember? I have no idea. I don't have the answer.
You know what? If we were there, we would have found this and solved this murder a long time ago.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Her final position told its own story. When her body was examined later, rigor mortis had fully set in. The stiffness confirmed that she had died the night before, likely around 10 o'clock. Livor mortis, the settling of blood, showed that she had died in that position. After she was dragged beneath the tree, she wasn't moved again. She had been left there 70 feet from her own house. The weapon, a Tony Penna 6-iron, had shattered during the attack. The head was found near the scene. The missing portion of the shaft had been used to impale her. The violence was intimate. It was close range. It required strength and proximity, meaning this was someone standing over her. By the time the neighborhood gathered at the property line and the yellow blanket was draped over her body, the story of the night was already written in bone fractures, blood patterns, and drag marks in the grass.
Okay. And from the beginning, the investigation was a fucking mess. The police didn't secure the scene properly, timelines were fuzzy, and statements were taken late. Evidence handling was charitable at best. 3 main figures emerged, though. So the 3 immediate suspects were 1, Thomas Skakel. He was the last person seen with Martha that night. He admitted they were together, and throughout the investigation, his story changed and then changed again. Then there was Kenneth Littleton. This is the first time we're hearing about him. He was the Skakel's newly hired live-in tutor who started his job on the very day of the murder. And because of this incredibly bad timing, he became the primary police suspect for nearly 25 years. And we'll get into why that is, of course, in part 2. And then there was Michael Skakel, 14 at the time, quiet, awkward, and he gave inconsistent timelines throughout this whole thing. At first, he claimed he went home, and then he says that he went home and then left again. But having 3 main suspects wasn't this case's only problem. No. There was a much bigger problem, and that was American royalty.
The Skakel children were related to Ethel Skakel Kennedy, widow of Robert F. Kennedy. This meant money. This meant power. This meant that every decision was going to be second-guessed by the people with better lawyers than the town of Greenwich could even afford. There are even reports that surfaced of Ethel's reaction when she first heard of the murder, apparently saying that she became very nervous and allegedly stated, "We can't let this touch the Kennedys," which is gross behavior, Ethel. We see you. Anyways, the connection to the Kennedys didn't solve what?
I was just going to chime in on that, but fuck me for wanting to be a part of this podcast.
No, chime in. What do you got?
I was going to say, I mean, Ethel, Come on, man. Like, the first thing you think of when this 15-year-old girl is brutally murdered is, we can't let this touch the Kennedys. Like, how fucking rich white lady is that?
I mean, white privilege.
She clutched her pearls.
So anyway, the connection to the Kennedys didn't help solve anything. In fact, it complicated it, because once that last name entered the picture, the case stopped being just about who killed Martha and it became about exposure and optic. It's about how hard you push when the family across the street isn't just wealthy, they're politically radioactive. And in that atmosphere, over the course of years, a lot of kooky shit had happened.
Yeah, so from 1975 through the early 1990s, the official narrative stayed pretty stagnant. So now we're going to get into everyone's alibi, or their original alibi, we should say, because they have a tendency to change. One in particular changes in a really convenient way, which happened to help one of these suspects later in court. So, Holly, let's get into these fucking, what are they called? Alibis.
Okay, let's do Tommy Skakel. Tommy Skakel told police that he had been with Martha in the driveway until about 9:30 p.m. After that, he said he went straight to his bedroom to write a school report on Abraham Lincoln, specifically on Lincoln and the history of log cabins. Well, he continued to claim that he worked on that report until about 10 p.m., then joined the live-in tutor, Kenny Littleton, to watch The French Connection. Quiet night, homework, movie, nothing dramatic. Except when investigators checked with teachers at the Brunswick school, they found no record of any Lincoln report ever being assigned. That's not sketchy.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about that alibi?
I mean, I feel like if you're going to make one up, at least make one up that they can't verify.
Right.
Like,
right.
That's something that's easily verifiable.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what gets me about that one is he went into it to say, like, not even just Abraham Lincoln, but he's like, oh, the log cabins for sure. Like, he went really in depth with this report that doesn't exist.
You know, I went to school and I don't think I ever learned about Lincoln log cabins. The closest thing I've heard of anything about a log cabin is the Lincoln logs, the little toys. Yes, we learned about Abraham Lincoln, but it was about how he freed the slaves. That's all I heard about him.
And his stupid fucking top hat.
I like his top hat.
Of course you do. Of fucking course you do. Okay, so the next alibi we're going to get into is Michael Skakel and the supposed cousin's house alibi. So Michael Skakel kept his story equally structured. He said he left their house at 9:15 p.m. with his older brothers, Rushton Skakel Jr. and John, along with their cousin Jimmy Terrian. They drove to the Terrian house in North Greenwich to watch Monty Python's Flying Circus. He said he returned home around 11 p.m. and went straight to bed. He insisted he hadn't seen Martha after 9:15. Clean separation, clean window. Except a neighbor, Andrea Renna, later testified she saw Michael at the Skakel house after the other brothers had already left in the car. And that 2-hour window was the one investigators believed Martha was killed in.
Then there was Kenneth Littleton, the brand new live-in tutor. He said he was alone in the house for most of the evening and started watching The French Connection around 10 p.m. He stuck to that. But he also told police that when he did a bed check around 9:45 p.m., Tommy wasn't in his room, which directly contradicted Tommy's Lincoln and log cabin alibi. And during the movie, Littleton said that he heard a thud, maybe scuffling, something outside. But because of Mischief Night, he didn't think anything of it and just stayed inside and finished his film.
Yeah, I don't blame him. With something like Mischief Night going on, you would think that like thuds and scuffling and like screaming kids or whatever would be pretty normal. I wouldn't think anything of it either, especially if it was my first fucking day on the job.
Yeah, that's out of his pay grade.
Yeah, he's like, I don't fucking care. Rich ass kids. No, just here to teach them. Tutor. Anyway, so now the older brothers, Rushton Jr. and John Skakel, backed Michael's version. They said they were with him at the Terrian residence from roughly 9:30 p.m. until 11 p.m. They were the reinforcement of his alibi, except investigators noted how vague their timing was. The drive, the arrival, the departure. The details weren't crystal clear when they were pressed for particulars. And when Dorothy Moxley called the Terrian house around 3 a.m. looking for Martha, Jimmy, who supposedly drove them that night, wasn't even home. Big oof, you guys. Big fucking oof on that one. So, for years, these were the stories. Lincoln homework that wasn't assigned, a movie alibi with shifting departure times, a tutor who heard something and didn't move, which I can say I don't really blame him, and then brothers who confirmed each other but couldn't anchor the clock. So by 1991, the legal pressure began to crack the Skakel's calm foundation. And here is where the Sutton report enters the picture. And this is when the rehearsed versions stopped being enough and the quote-unquote real versions came to light. So let's get into that report. In 1992, Rushton Sr. decided he had had enough of the whispers. So what do you do when your family name is circling a murder and you have money? You hire a prestigious private firm to investigate your own children. Rushton brought in Sutton Associates out of Long Island. The goal was strategic: clean this up, assess the legal risk, and clear Michael and Tommy once and for all. Push suspicions somewhere else, preferably toward the live-in tutor, Kenneth Littleton. And this wasn't like a grief thing. This was damage control with a billing rate. And the timing? Chef's kiss. The report was triggered by renewed public attention after the 1991 rape trial of William Kennedy Smith, when rumors, completely unfounded, floated that he had been at the Skakel house the night Martha was killed. Suddenly, the case had Kennedy gravity again, so the family's solution was to open the vault and say, let's investigate ourselves. What could possibly go wrong? Well, let's tell him, Holly.
So the plan was simple. Conduct a thorough private investigation, gather every fact, clear the boys, and end this thing quietly. Instead, it detonated. During the Sutton interviews, both Tommy and Michael Skakel admitted for the first time that they had lied to the police back in 1975. Let's just let that sink in. For nearly 2 decades, the public alibis stood. Homework, bedtime, clean timelines. Now, Tommy admitted he had actually been with Martha until nearly 10 p.m., engaged in a sexual encounter. Go figure. So much for the Abraham Lincoln book report. That's clearly out the window. Michael admitted he hadn't gone straight to bed after returning home. Instead, he claimed he went back outside, climbed a tree in the Moxley property, tossed a pebble at Martha's window, and when she didn't answer, he sat there and yankied his doodle while looking at her window, even though the room was empty. Yeah. Yankee Doodle went to town.
All about his pony.
He said this on the record more than twice, so this is now his story. You can't make this up.
So fucking weird.
I mean, why? I guess if that's the worst thing you had done in a murder investigation was yankee your own doodle, I would rather somebody know that than think that I killed somebody. Like, if I was in fact innocent, I would rather somebody say, okay, this is what I was actually doing, and I just didn't want to tell you that because it makes me sound like a perv.
It doesn't make you sound like a perv. It makes you a perv. I mean, if anything, he would have caught another charge.
I mean, technically it was an empty room. He threw a pebble at an empty room and yankied his doodle in the window. Or
he
in
jerked
the tree.
off in public.
That's his problem. But he didn't murder her. At least
allegedly.
Allegedly. Yes.
Allegedly. Anyway, so since the report really narrows in on the brothers, at one point, one of the family's attorneys reportedly asked investigators to construct a worst case scenario for each one of them. So it's such an incredible phrase. It's not find the truth or figure out what really happened, but build me the worst version so we can prepare. That's not innocence energy. That's contingency planning. But then something happened that the Skakels never could have imagined. The most damaging thing that could possibly happen to their family's reputation, defense, and credibility. That Sutton report leaked to the public and reporters. It went live. And that is what blew this case to the fucking moon. That is also where we're stopping for part 1. And believe it or not, it gets even wilder in part 2. Like, you think you have this figured out? I assure you, you do not. Well, I mean, you might, but probably not, because there's a lot more to come. There's new people coming in that could be suspects. There's a lot more statements coming from people. It goes back and forth like a crazy tennis match.
It's funny that you would call it a tennis match since that's what rich people play.
No.
Who's stereotyping now, Kathy?
Me.
Might as well just say croquet.
I would rather stereotype rich people playing tennis than saying that because she was a slut, she got murdered.
I didn't say that's why she was murdered. I didn't say that's why. I said that's why she probably should have stopped going over there.
You kind of said that's how she got in this situation.
She did put herself in that situation by taking on brothers.
I mean, look what she was wearing. She was asking for it, right? That's kind of your...
I did not say that. I did insinuate that by hoeing around with the brothers, she might have gotten herself into a sticky situation.
Oh, sharky waters. She's in sharky waters.
Sharky waters.
In too deep. I'm using it. I don't fucking care. But anyways, yeah, so it gets absolutely insane from here on, like, on this part too. It hurts my head to figure out the rest of this case. I'm confused.
Why are you confused if you know how it ends?
It's just because I don't know if the ending is actually how it was supposed to end.
Don't make this too deep.
Okay, yeah. It's not my family. It's not my fucking problem, right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, anyway, so being how this isn't technically the end of the case, but it is the end of the episode, I can't do the why this case is a hot mess. So...
And that makes me get a little bit happy because I don't have to see you do the dance and sing it and sit here and just listen. I get to talk. I get to be part of it. I get to be a person.
Oh my God.
It's my time to shine.
And welcome to Hot Mess Holly's Breakdown. Jesus Christ.
I'm just kidding.
Anyway, so instead of doing why this case is a hot mess on this episode, Holly, I've decided to do something else with you. Are you excited?
I don't like when you throw surprises at me.
Okay, well, this time we're doing the part 1 quiz.
You're gonna fucking test me? You're giving me homework?
That's not homework. You're gonna do it right here. It's classwork. Anyway, so this quiz is called, Are You Paying Attention or Just Pretending to Care? All right, so I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and I need to make sure that you are paying attention this entire fucking time. If you guys at home who are listening want to play along, go right ahead. And you can put your answers in the comments or whatever you want to do. I don't really care, but I'll read them and like them if you do it. So... Question number 1. So when the police first searched the Moxley property before sunrise, why did the officer reportedly ignore suspicious things in the yard? Was it A, he thought the dog had dragged trash around? B, he assumed it was Mischief Night prank debris? C, he believed Martha had just snuck out? D, he didn't actually check the yard at all?
I'm gonna go with B.
Very good. Very good. So because apparently it's Halloween was enough to downgrade a missing teenager into seasonal decoration. Hey, very good, Holly. All right, number 2. When Sheila McGuire spotted something under the Ponderosa Pine around 12:20 p.m., what made her realize it wasn't just a leftover Halloween prop? Was it A, the jagged metal golf club shaft protruding from the neck? B, the blue and white checked pants Martha had been wearing? C, the fact that mannequins don't bleed? Or D, all of the above, and now we're all traumatized?
I mean, we're going to have to go with D, obviously. Obviously. I mean, why would you even did you make this test? Is this something that you put together?
I don't feel like that's one of the questions.
I just feel like that was just, you could have done better.
Okay, well, you know what? It's probably a mannequin. It is horror movie logic. It is never a mannequin. It has never once in true crime history been a mannequin. So I think it was the pants that drew her in, and then the rest of it, she was like, oh, dear God. Nope, that's a person, not a mannequin.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I would have assumed the pants would have been the first clear indication. Like seeing the pants, that's what's going to catch your eye because of the color. And then when you see how it's all laid out, my thought isn't going to be, oh, a mannequin doesn't bleed. Obviously, a mannequin doesn't fucking bleed. Like,
I don't know why you're yelling at the quiz. Okay, I had to put answers in there.
Okay.
Trying to make it fucking entertaining for you.
I'm so
Anyways, question number 3. I need a ruler for this class so I can smack you around with it.
Yeah, well, I'm out of range.
You are. Anyway, so number 3, Tommy Skakel's original alibi for the time of the murder was that he was in his room doing what? A, writing poetry. B, calling a girlfriend. C, writing a school report on Abraham Lincoln. D, practicing for a debate club.
I'm going to say he was calling a girlfriend.
Wrong. You're stupid.
I meant to say he was practicing for the debate club and writing poetry about Abraham Lincoln and the log cabins.
You win. Dun, da, da, da. No, it was definitely answer C, because when investigators checked with the school, there was no Lincoln report, no log cabin essay, no assignment. So he just kind of invented that homework assignment and got fucking busted. And a bonus question for you, Holly. Are you ready for this one?
I am.
Okay. So what was Michael Skakel's revised explanation for what he did after returning home at 11 p.m.? Was it A, went straight to bed, B, he prayed, C, he climbed a tree outside Martha's window and badgered his witness, wink, wink, or D, started journaling?
I mean, he yankied his doodle.
He badgered his witness.
He badgered his witness.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. If you picked C like you did, Holly, that means you were actually listening. And if you guys forgot that part, I envy you, because that's fucking gross. It's all pretty gross.
Yeah.
But anyways, so that is all the time we have here for part 1 of this tragic, unfortunate, disturbing case that keeps getting weirder as we go. We will be back with part 2 next week, and we will get into the arrests, the trials, the convictions, the reconvictions, the releases, and the new suspects. I am telling you guys, it is not over, not even close. Until then, make sure you're following Hot Mess Murder Club anywhere you lurk for your podcasts. New full episodes drop every Monday for your ear holes to enjoy. And definitely subscribe to us on YouTube for Case Cleanup, where we take true crime cases and give you the straight facts, no bullshittery attached. And those literally drop anytime we fucking feel like it, so subscribing is the only way not to miss it. Otherwise, that's it. It's time to fucking go. But remember, if someone protects their image before they protect a person, then you just learned who they really are. Now get the fuck out of my house. Goodbye.
Bye.
Say bye, Kiki.